I was 14 at the time. It was an ordinary day. It was a boring Sunday. I had no schoolwork to do or anything. Man, was I bored. So, I decided to go on Instagram for some entertainment. I was scrolling through some pictures and videos. Then all of a sudden, I get a DM. I say, maybe it's someone I know. I go to the DM to check it out, and it's from an older man who I have never seen before. He must have been in his 50s at least. He said that he was looking for a sugar baby. I just responded and told him to leave me alone and that I wasn't interested. When I think about it, I probably should have just blocked him. But then I told him that he was a creep and that I was only 14 years old. Thinking that was the end of it, he responds back to me saying that age is just a number and that he wants to come see me. I told him no, and for him to leave me alone. And I regret it to this day for saying this. But I told him, you don't even know where I live. Then he responds to me with my address and said he is coming to me now. I'm not gonna lie, that scared me a lot, because that was actually my real address. I was a little freaked out, but I tried ignoring it and just continuing my day like nothing happened. The next day came, and I left for school in the morning. I walked to school. It's about a 15-minute walk. Both my parents couldn't pick me up because they both work in the early morning. As I'm walking to school, I see a car behind me. It felt a little weird, as if it was following me, so I ran down a random street to see if the car was actually still following me. And to my surprise, it was. As I was running down the street, I was out of breath and slowed down. The car pulled up to me, and it was the same man I saw on Instagram. I was in shock, and I didn't know what to do, but froze. The man said, "Come in the car, kid. I have some candy for you." I said no thanks, and to leave me alone. I started walking away. He didn't like that, so he followed me from inside the car, then pulled up in front of me, got out of the car, then grabbed me. I was fighting, but he was too strong. He was pulling me to his car, then another car beeps the horn and says, "I'm calling the police." The man then lets go of me, goes back to his car, and drives away. The person from the other car called my parents, and I took the rest of the day off of school to calm down and relax. Missing school that day was the last thing on my mind. It's now 4 years later, and I haven't ever seen the man. I always thought about what would have happened to me if it wasn't for the other car that day. Would I still be alive? I never walked to school since. All I know is I'm lucky to still be alive, and I take every day as it's my last, because you never know what could happen.
Rachel was enjoying her summer holidays, but had to save up for her college fees for going back to college. Last summer Rachel worked in a bar and enjoyed it, but since this summer had a lockdown and most of the bars and all the clubs were shut, she had no choice of securing bar work this summer. It was when she was in her friend's house one night that her friend Susie recommended the platform OnlyFans. Rachel first thought it was a disgusting, sleazy site, but had to admit the way Susie was telling her about it seemed appetizing, and the best selling point was she could make a ton of money from the comfort of her own home. Within a week, Rachel set up lights in her bedroom. She already had them anyway, as she used to blog a lot on social media, but never ever thought she would be doing such dirty photos, etc. She posted a few sexy photos, but nothing too explicit. Within a week, she was delighted to see that her followers were going up, and the first month she had made over 1,000 euros. After a while, she started posting exclusive content for her followers who would pay more, and she even got tips for no extra content. One night she received a very creepy message from a guy that paid her to pretend to slit her throat with a knife. She had an open mind at this stage, but still found it very creepy, a guy asking her to get a knife and pretend to slit her throat. The man got very pushy, saying he would pay more money if she did it, and he wouldn't take a no for an answer. So she just spoke a little bit more and then blocked him. That night, Rachel was walking her usual walk she used to do around the block in the evening when she heard a noise. She thought it might have just been a dog or a cat, but looked anyway. There was nothing there. She kept walking until she heard it again. This time she froze, wondering, could someone be actually following her? Suddenly a man appeared and she jumped. Then she screamed when she saw a man pull out a knife and put it to her throat. He said, "You stupid little bitch." Rachel was thankful she took karate classes when she defended herself and was able to knock the knife from the man's hand. Then she knocked the man to the ground and grabbed the knife and held it to his throat. He was smiling, and that made her blood boil. She picked his skin, and there was blood. Then there was more blood as she stuck it in more. He told her, "Okay, that's enough, babe. I loved that roleplay. I am absolutely so turned on." Rachel then said, "I am turned on more, knowing that I am going to add a little extra to your roleplay. I am going to actually cut your freaking throat for real." With that, Rachel sliced the man's throat open. The next day, she was looking through her phone to see what messages or tips she got on her OnlyFans, but she was surprised when she saw a DM from the man that she blocked. She wondered, 1, how could she get a message from someone she blocked? And 2, how can she receive a message from someone she know she left absolutely dead? She opened the message, and there was a link to a video. She clicked on it and saw a video of her slicing the man's throat. It was the CCTV footage, but she made sure there was no camera. No, it couldn't have been CCTV footage. It must have been someone filming her. But who? She froze to death when she saw what happened. When she walked away, the man had vanished into thin air. Suddenly she turned around when she felt like someone blowing into her neck. The man was staring right into her eyes and said, "You shouldn't have took it that far. All those creeps on that horrible app are just a bunch of losers. I am your only fan, worth anything, and you just let me die." Rachel was trying to figure out what was happening. Suddenly, she woke up from a nightmare. It all came flooding back to her now, her killing the man. She wondered how she turned into a cold-blooded killer just over a few strange roleplay requests. Suddenly her phone rang. Susie said, "Rachel, you wouldn't believe what this crazy guy paid me €100,000 for last night. He was completely nuts. He claimed to have some power to turn any idea into a reality. Would you believe that? He said to me make up some horror story about OnlyFans about my best friend. I told him some wild crazy story that a guy messaged you to play a roleplay game, to him go to stab you and then you really stab him and then you would have a nightmare after it that the guy actually came back to life. Can you imagine? He actually paid me €100,000 for that, for some crazy stupid little story. I am extremely proud of myself for the ending. It really seemed to get him off." Rachel couldn't comprehend what she was hearing and asked Susie, how did her story end? Susie said, "He came back to life really, and first slit your throat, then teleported himself or whatever to slit mine. With that, the girls' phones were lying on the ground in a pool of blood, with them lying dead.
I was home alone watching horror, and I felt tense as I hated being home alone. So the suspense of the movie added to my anxiety. I don't know why I'm such a crybaby. Maybe I should just not watch scary movies. I got a notification from my phone. It was a Snapchat notification. It was a message. It read, "Check my story." I wondered, who would it be from? As there was no photo on the profile, just black, I scrolled down my Snapchat contacts and viewed their story. I looked closer, squinting my eyes, as it was very dark. I could make out it was some sort of room. I jumped with fright when I realized it was my front door and the story was taken inside my hall. I looked up from the couch where I was sitting into the hall, but could not see anything. I realized the story wouldn't have been live, of course. Maybe it was my boyfriend Jake playing some stupid prank on me, but I still felt dread overcome me and was paralyzed with fear. Whoever this is could still be in my house. I got another notification and almost turned my phone off, but knew that wouldn't change anything if someone was actually in my house. I pressed the button and viewed the snap. This time it was a video. I could see the back of my head and my phone in my hand. Whoever was filming this snap was just behind me and is just behind me now. My heart jumped in my chest and I felt like screaming, but couldn't as I was frozen with fear. I suddenly felt a hand touch my shoulder and jumped and screamed. A man walked around with a mask, then took the mask off, and he stared right at me. Let me introduce myself. You can call me, Jake. You don't know me, as you were too busy stealing my phone the other day. I followed you home, and that's how I know where you live. I was going to call the police, but decided there would be something more creative I could do. I shouted, "Please, please, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't steal any phone." The man pulled out a phone. "Oh, but you see, you did. I have it all here on camera. Luckily, my good old observant friend caught the whole thing while pretending to be busy texting. He showed me the camera and I felt disgust watching my twin sister kissing my boyfriend. I looked up in fear, hoping he would believe me. That is not me. That is my twin. I looked up in fear, hoping he would believe me. That is not me. That is my twin sister cheating with my goddamn boyfriend. Jake laughed. Do you expect me to believe that? I flicked through my phone and showed him a pic of me and my twin sister Sarah. He looked at it and then back to me. Well, where is your twin sister then? I was shaking with fear. She's at work. She will be home at 12. It was 11:30 now. I said, that bitch was kissing my boyfriend. I'll lead you right to her if you like. Jake smiled again and said, sounds like a plan. But work, wherever that is, well, that's not a place where I can exactly get revenge. I got out my phone and Jake looked at it to see was it his. I knew it wasn't. I'll call her to come straight home. Let me use my home phone. I have no credit. He nodded. Go on then. Call her now. I picked up the phone and after a few rings she answered. Please come back home straight after work. I'm in trouble with my project. I need some help. The deadline is tomorrow. It's an emergency. I hung up before any reply. He said to me, It looks like your twin sister is a thief and someone that stole her own twin sister's boyfriend. Wow, that's bad. This bitch will have what's coming to her. I smiled. You can say that again? If I knew about her being with my boyfriend, I would have tracked you down myself to you teach her a lesson. At 12:10, my sister pulled up in the driveway in a car and knocked on the door. I opened it and Jake was standing at the side. My sister walked in and a cop came in behind her. Once I saw the cop, I screamed, "Please, help, help, he's in my house." I admitted to the cop afterwards. It was me that stole Jake's phone, but had to pretend it was my twin sister. I held the mute button down when I made the call to my sister. I spoke certain words, so instead of her hearing, "I'm in trouble with my project, I need some help, the deadline is tomorrow, it's an emergency," she heard, "I'm in trouble, I need help, it's an emergency." I was happy that it worked, pressing mute with certain words, so that is all she heard. And I will never ever steal anything again. Marie broke up with her boyfriend, Jason, a month ago and has been single since. She misses the company, going out, having a coffee or having a meal. She found it hard to meet people and her friends were praising the dating app Tinder. Some even said they met amazing people through the app. Her best friend Sarah is with her boyfriend of 6 months and they met on Tinder, so she decided to give it a go. She set up a date through Tinder in a local bar where they had a few drinks. Her date was a man in his early 20s called Sam. He had a really good job and she found him dreamy looking, and he seemed to tick all the boxes for her type of guy. There was a guy playing pool next to them, and Marie found it strange what happened. The guy accidentally hit Sam. He turned around to apologize and said, "Oh, sorry, buddy." Sam didn't answer, just gave him a cold, nasty look. Marie found it very, very strange indeed, but overlooked it. After the drinks, Sam asked Marie would she like a drive home, and she knew he only drank coffee in the bar, so there was no reason to refuse. Plus, it was a half-hour walk to her house and she felt very tired. She said that would be great, and they both walked out into Sam's car. When they arrived at Marie's house, they walked up to her door and Marie said, "Thanks." Sam was hoping she'd ask him in, and he felt relief when she said, "Would you like to come in for another coffee?" "Sure," he said. When Marie shut the door, she turned to kiss Sam, and all of a sudden, a man bolted for Sam, knocking him to the ground. Marie screamed in terror, and then realized the man who knocked Sam to the ground was her ex-boyfriend Jason. She knew he was the jealous type, but never expected him to attack the next guy she met. She shouted at him to stop. Jason suddenly grabbed a gun out of his pocket and shot Sam in the shoulder. Sam fell, holding his shoulder, crying in pain. Marie was trembling in fear with her crazy ex-boyfriend in front of her, holding a gun. He said, "Don't move." Suddenly, Sam pointed a gun right at Jason and shot him in the head. Marie cried hysterically, knowing her ex-boyfriend was just killed before her eyes, but knew if it wasn't him, he would have shot her. Jason looked up at her and said, "Don't worry, it was self-defense." Then she heard movement behind her and turned around to see a large man staring straight at her. It suddenly hit her that her boyfriend wasn't telling her not to move, but he was telling the man behind her not to move to save her. Fear and dread rushed through her, knowing she was alone with two men who would no doubt kill her. Suddenly the door burst open, knocking the guy in front of Marie, and Sam lifted the gun, shouting, "Get back or I'll shoot." It was the man from the bar playing pool. He ducked and rammed right into Sam, then lifted his fist and punched him so hard he knocked him out. He then grabbed the gun, pointing it at the other man, and shouted, "You move one muscle and I'll shoot your head off." Marie had already rang the police. The man introduced himself to Marie after the police arrived and told her, after explaining to the police, he knew there was something off about the guy and knew something was up when he left a note on the table. He walked over and gave a glance just before a man could pick it up, and it had written on it, "Follow us, I'm going to her house." So he followed them to see what was going on. Marie was thanking her lucky stars, how lucky she was that the man whose name was Tom was observant enough to spot something very sinister was going on. She worried what could have happened to her if he didn't save her, and she promised herself she'd never ever date anyone through Tinder or anyone online again.
I was hanging out at the bar with my friends, and they were talking about this weird guy called Brian B. Westbay on Facebook. The bar was very loud, so I couldn't really follow what they were saying, but it sounded very interesting to me, so I researched it when I went home. It was very strange and lured me in to find out more and more about him. I read in a forum that he wasn't really a person, not human, and was some sort of supernatural entity. There were multiple rumours, but there were two main stories that caught my eye. One was that Brian's account was set up by the government to add as many people on Facebook as they can and spy on them. But there was a glitch in the system, and it gathered no information and brought back no results the government were hoping to get. The second main story is the one that really grabbed my attention, and to me sounded more plausible. It was that Brian B. Westbay was a regular everyday guy who was obsessed with social media. He was constantly posting updates from when he woke up and got out of bed in the morning to when he went to sleep at night. One night he got very drunk and came home and started posting very embarrassing stuff, and one of the videos went viral. Brian was so embarrassed he committed suicide. I was looking at his profile and it was mainly empty. There were no updates, no profile picture, etc. But I added him just out of curiosity. A few minutes later, he accepted my request. I was startled when I got a message in my inbox which said, "I am happy to be your friend." I answered back, "Hi Brian, thanks for accepting." I got a reply, "We are friends." And every single message I sent for the next few minutes, I got the same reply, "We are friends." I lost my cool not getting no proper reply, so I typed in capital letters and sent, "Can we speak?" A few seconds later, an audio file was sent, and there was static noise, but I could feel my heart thump in my chest when I heard a weird voice at the end say, "Hello, friend." It frightened me so much I messaged back, "We are not friends." I got back different sad emojis. Suddenly, his profile picture changed to a creepy face. I looked at it and suddenly felt myself drawn to look at it more closely. That night, when I turned off my lights, I saw his face. I felt dread at the vision of the face just inches from me. I froze with fear. As days went by, I kept seeing him, more and more. When I wake up during the night, his creepy face is inches from me, looking right at me. Brian Westby wants to be friends with me and so many more people, I bet. But remember, if you come across his Facebook profile before you add him, just know that he is a friend you can't get rid of. It was a Friday night and I was scrolling through my phone when I opened the TikTok app. I scrolled through it, then noticed I had a message. I opened the message and it was from a guy called Frank. He said, "You were looking beautiful at the mall today." I blocked him instantly as I felt a shiver run up my spine. I just put it down to some creep trying to freak me out, so I didn't pay much more attention to it. The next day I was in the mall with my friends, and we were just walking after coming down the escalator when a man was standing in front of me as I got off. I said, "Excuse me," very politely. He turned around and said, "I'm very sorry for blocking you. Please pass." His words, "very sorry for blocking you," sounded so creepy. It felt as if he was the guy who had sent me the message last night. But how could that be? I told my friends, and they agreed it all sounded a bit creepy the way he worded it. I was hoping it was just a coincidence. That night when I went home, I received another message, which must have been the same guy. This time he said, "You shouldn't have blocked me." He must have set up a new account to just send me that. I jumped when I suddenly heard a noise outside my door. There was a piece of wood stuck up against it, with "You're blocked" written on it. I was shaking with fear and went to my window to try to get out. But I knew it was too high, and when I looked down, I could see the man below from the mall staring right up at me. I rang the police and stayed in my room until they came. When they arrived, the wood was gone from my door, and the man was nowhere to be seen. I couldn't understand the wood disappearing from my door. Then suddenly I woke up. Everything was dark. I know now what woke me. It was my phone. I answered it and could hear a man's voice. As I was saying, "You shouldn't have blocked me," I screamed, "Let me out, let me out." The man said, "There is a straw in your coffin underground. I will be taking that straw out in just under 5 minutes. There had been oxygen pumped into your coffin, but when that's gone, I'm afraid you're on your own. But I threw you a lifeline. I sent your friend a message on TikTok, telling her where you are. If they're a real friend, they will find their way here to save you. But then again, they will need to bring a shovel, etc. So the time is ticking. Tick-tock, tick-tock," he said in a very creepy voice. Then there was silence. What seemed like an hour later, I could hear police sirens, and I thanked God my friend had rang them and got here on time. I was afraid after that to ever go on TikTok again. The man's voice rang in my ears. Tick-tock. Tick Tock.